book. Hello and good morning, everybody. It is a beautiful, sacred Sunday morning, and I am here with one of my favorite human beings on the planet, beloved brother Danyan Brinkley. I first met Danyan in 1994. I was working as a producer on a show called The Other Side. It was a daytime talk show on NBC, and that's when you and I first met, Danyan. And after that, we had many different adventures and experiences. He did several different shows as I was working on different TV shows. I always would say, we got to do a story on Danyan. And I want to acknowledge most of you know him as being famous for writing the book and understanding about near-death experiences. But the most important thing to know about Danyan is his incredible love and dedication, especially to veterans, especially to veterans who are facing death. He has helped thousands and thousands of people prepare for leaving their body, letting go of the physical body. And he's raised a lot of money. He's raised a lot of consciousness. And Danyan, I just love you so very, very much.
Well, when you go through what is called death, and you realize so much about who you are as a spiritual being as compared to who you are as a physical being, the transition is not very difficult to do right, and to understand certain things must stay in integrity regardless. Not everything has to be so perfectly in integrity, but how I'm able to stay alive is because I'm at the bedside of those in transition. And so when you understand the art form of what we'll experiment with today, when you understand the art form, it begins to, you get so much consciously aware of the divinity of yourself as equal to what physical separation and the term death appears to mean.
You know, I shared this story when you were on Saturday Night Live before, and I want to share it again. It's a beautiful story. One of the times I did a segment with Danyan, I brought my film crew. This was back in the days when you'd have a video crew with lots of cameras and lights and all that kind of thing. And we went to the Veterans Hospital in Long Beach. And in the ward of the gentleman who were dying, there was a young man who was dying from AIDS. And he was terrified. And, you know, before he talked to Danyan, I did a little interview with him, and he talked about how he doesn't believe in life after death. He's terrified of dying. And then Danyan kind of took over and we backed off, but the cameras were rolling. And I didn't hear much of what Danyan said to the young man, but at a certain point, Danyan said, "May I just hug you?" And so we see Danyan and this young man go into a hug. And it lasts, and it lasts, and it lasts. And I remember we ran out of film. We had to change the reels. And finally, probably after 25 or 30 minutes, they pull back from the hug, and this young man has tears streaming down his face. Saying, "Oh my God, there is a heaven. There's a heaven. Danyan showed me I'm not afraid to die anymore. There's a heaven." I will never forget that experience, Danyan. Now, I know you've provided that experience for a lot of people, but for most of us, that's just such a beautiful and extraordinary thing. So tell us a little bit about, how does that work? What happens when you take someone and show them what I call the astral plane, or most people call heaven?
Well, the astral plane is just a certain level before the next. You got to always remember, between each dimension, there are densities. And between the human being in this dimension and the next level of consciousness, there are seven densities. What you have to do, I have a technique that allows a person to move through me using my knowledge, nature, and safety of what's next to create a comfort zone based on synchronizing their breathing. As they breathe in, I breathe out. And I envelop their energetic pattern or their auric field. And I envelop that with my love and my sense of utter absolute knowing that no one dies. And that transition is a complete total fabrication as you define it as death. It just doesn't work like that. It's nonsense to think it. And so once I can hold that person and put that pattern into place and set my intentions like we'll do today, I can move through that veil. I can move through that veil because it's energetic patterns, and I can shift and spread those electrons out or to the neutrino pattern and give their spiritual self a chance to remove the densities or the chakra levels so that they can connect. It's just a technique like this technique that we'll use today. The basis of this is everybody listen to me. You are a great, powerful, and mighty spiritual being with dignity, direction, and purpose. So for this experiment, give me the benefit of the doubt that while we do this today, that your intention is to expand your consciousness. The part of it we use is to connect with someone or to allow someone to help you connect. It will take 2 or 3 times. Some will experience instantly, but it'll take 2 or 3 times for you to get the hang of finding a quiet, calm, peaceful place. And a sense to share something exciting in your life with someone who has transitioned. We're not looking for if they're okay and safe, they're in heaven. Okay, so if you think they're okay and it's safe, and if that's the reason you want to check, then there's something about you that's not paying attention to how selfish you're being, wanting to connect with them because wanting to know if they made it okay. That's selfishness. That's feeling alone and abandoned. It will never happen. So when you look at religions and institutions and governments that create that as a psychological matrix to ground you in, then you're trapped here in physical reality instead of dwelling in your spiritual self. Does that make sense, Scott?
Yeah, it's a little sharp. It does make sense. And, you know, we get lost in the illusion of separation here. You know, there's such the way that we as human beings experience reality, most of the time, we're in a perception of feeling separate. And what a remarkable time to be alive when we have so many spiritual teachers and scientists and people such as yourself all saying the same thing, that we really are one incredible experience. Call it life, call it God, call it source, call it the unified field. And so we are kind of awakening from this dream that we've been in, that we're separate, and recognizing the oneness of all. And but I have compassion for how hard it is to get out of that dream, to get out of that illusion of separation. And that's why I'm grateful for people such as yourself to give us tools to help us to have those experiences. So it's not a book that we've read or a philosophy that we've heard, but an experience of our unity with all.
Yeah, because watch, I've been dead so many times as like a comedy routine. Okay. And I have no illusion, no fear, no doubt, none of that. Not because I read it in a book or I listened to some story someone told me. Struck by lightning, open heart surgery, brain surgery, open heart surgery, literally being clinically dead. In the last 2.5 years, I've been clinically dead twice. So I got it over the last 45 years, I got it down pat. And I have spent 42 years as a hospice volunteer and 37 years in the VA, dying with over 2,000 veterans. So when you come down to palliative and end of life care and the nature of what's next, I got it and understand it as well as lessen the fear of death. My name is, we're all scared to death of death. And it's driven by religions and institutions and governments. And the pandemic came about because I wanted to show everybody this so that they get an idea. I wrote a book in 1993 that was published in 1994. And it was about an experience that happened to me in 1975 when I was struck by lightning. And then in Saved by the Light, I wrote about the boxes of knowledge. And I described future events that would come. So I want to show people this is an original firsthand copy of where we are living today. Can you read that?
I see it's page 42, box 12, technology and virus.
Okay, so technology and the virus. So this describes an event that would come about that deals with a virus that would structure to kill you, a vaccine that would come into technology that would be a chip implant, and that would change the shift in the course of how life is managed in healthcare. I even described someone who was not a doctor that would become so powerful and so wealthy they would think of themselves as a god and determine eugenics and determine that the earth is too populated and there's things that have to do that manages that. I think we pretty much well know who that person turned out to be. And I described their technology as the way they rule the world. And I think that technology would be described as Microsoft operating systems. And so when you look at this book and you see the potential of where our future is, it's in our hands today. The actions that you take between now and next September or October, not this one coming, but the next one, it will determine whether we are at peace or we're in a world war. I would have to say right now, we are in the early stages of a world war. That's where we are. And what has to happen is a change in consciousness. So when you talked about this, and when we talk, because we're really good friends, putting this technique out there for people to use, get comfortable with, and to trust me. Because there's nothing I gain from this. There is nothing in it for me. I'm not afraid of death. I'm not scared of living or dying or whatever it is. The only thing I don't want to ever fail is me. Because the only person I've never been able to outsmart, get over, get around, or get away with anything is myself. Okay. All right. And when you have a panoramic life review, that teaches you that you don't get away with anything. You are responsible for this life because you chose and were chosen to come to it. All right. So here's what let's do, everybody. Let's find that comfortable place. Let's put our bowl and let's put our candle and our keepsake close together as possible. Pay attention to your breathing. Pay attention to your breathing. Find a smooth, rhythmic breathing. Open up your heart. Light your candle. In the future, when you try this, always have a cloth or something that you put this on so that it has I use a dish rag, a washcloth, but that's perfect. Put it on something that shows separation, that this is a unique platform or this is an altar. These are the mentalities, and you use the same stuff each time. You put the bowl of water and you put a big pinch of salt in there. Pay attention to your breathing. Breathing represents your ability to pull in the divine force. When people say, where is God? Wonder where God is, and is God in heaven? Well, if you want to know where God is, lick the palm of your hand and wave it in the air in any direction. Wave it in any direction. And that cold spot on your hand is you feeling God.
I feel him. Hey, she's here. She's here.
I think there she is. She's cool. Any way you move her, you find her. So now you know she's present. You may not can see her, but you can feel the cool, calm safety of her love in the center of your hand. Or his love. Just depends on how you view God.
That is a
goddess.
beautiful, I just want to say what a wonderful tool. Lick the palm of your hand, wherever you reach, feel it, the coolness, and that is life, God. Connected.
Exactly. She's cool. Anywhere you go, anything you do, there she is. So now you're in that divine presence.
I love that. That's a good one, Dave.
Pinch of salt and put in your water.
Okay.
Pay attention to your breathing because you're breathing into divine presence. Find that peace. That water and salt represents your physical body, the person you're trying to contact's physical body. Your body's 72% water, and it's mostly salt water because salt is the element the body has to have to cause things to move, motivate, charge, and structure in the body. You have to have certain kinds of salts in the body because it causes the chemical reactions in the body to work. So now you have a bowl, you have water, and you have salt. So that represents your physical body, and it represents who you want to contact's physical body. Don't define who it is. You already know kind of who you want to meet. But what you want to do is leave that open because there are greater divine sources at work in your life than something you want to do. And if it's that person isn't busy in some other cosmic universe today, they are still, if you use this technique every week at a certain time, at a certain place, you set up a level of consciousness that they know you'll be there. And I will guarantee you, everybody, sooner or later, for this little 20 minutes that you take this time, they will come. The next is you light your candle. Okay? So as you light your candle, think of this. Look at the flame. Take a few moments, still paying attention to your breathing, still focused on your breathing. Look at your flame. Now, what many of you cannot see is that flame is red, orange, blue, green, indigo, and violet. And at the very top of that flame, at its hottest point, is a violet flame. That is your energetic spiritual self. Red, orange, blue, green, indigo, and violet. That is your spiritual self. It represents the color of each chakra, which is where your body, chakra means spinning wheel, but it's where each of the levels of your connectiveness to the ethereal level exist. And that's your energetic body because it's your candle and you're doing it. But that also represents their once energetic body, which still exists. So now we've created a cloth, which is an altar. We created a bowl of water, which is the body, your body, because you created it, and their body. And then you created the flame. And that flame, where there's light, there can be no darkness. And it is better to light a single candle than it is to curse the darkness. But it gives them a pattern. When you live in the energetic, dynamic magnificence of the spiritual realm of consciousness, in order to be able to come back here, you can set it down. In order to be able to come back here, you have to have points of reference. Everybody has to come back to the Hall of Records or the Book of Judgment or I call it the blue-gray place, But you have to come back there and reacquire the identity of the being you loved or was loved by. Because as bad as I hate to tell you, everybody, this, the person that you loved and who loved you is not always the same person that let this body go and became back to their natural loving self. You take on a job, you choose to come and you're chosen to come. And each of those jobs is an aspect. Just like with if you go to work, you're not the same complete person at work or that you are at home, because there takes certain job descriptions, certain efforts, certain psychologies to achieve the goals that you set out to achieve. And then you come home and be yourself. Well, you have to remember that that's what's happening. You put on this role as Scott, you put on this role as Daniel, and it's mostly you, but it's not all you. It's like out in the what I call the Swami business, Scott. You got to be on, whereas I'm not like that. You know, I cut grass on my tractor on my farm in Texas. You know, when you called me once and everybody thought I was dying and I was mowing the back 20.
I remember that.
Okay, so we got to remember and take into consideration all the divine things. We get so caught up in the individual nature of our personal relationship, but it's about the personal relationship that you have with yourself, because you're the one creating the altar. You're the one looking at, there is now a physical body, a body of water, which is your body and their body. That represents it. Then you have a flame and a candle. And that's the energetic body. They can lock to that flame and they can lock to that candle. And then the object that you have is either an object that was there or a picture there, so it symbolizes. Now sit and look at that. Just everyone, please just gaze at this for a few moments. Pay attention to the tenseness in your shoulders. Pay attention to the tenseness in your shoulders and just gaze, not stare, but gaze, because what happens is your mind frames it. Then your heart opens to the picture of the object, and that energetic surrounds the body and the spiritual life in the altar. But always, please pay attention to your breathing. The deeper you breathe, the more regulated that breath is, the greater opportunity that this event is going to happen. And as you practice doing this over the next couple of weeks, I mean, you take a day, and I like Sunday, I like this day. I don't want you to miss Scott's program. But the more on time and the more regularly scheduled that you do it, the easier it is for them to cut. And you can't say make time. You can make time in this world, but in the world they're coming from, time is an irrelevant issue. It's continuums and it's timelines that you function in. People have to understand that quantum creates such a wonderment, but let's don't go there. So breathe, pay attention to your shoulders, everybody. Pay attention to your shoulders and relax. Focus on your bowl. Focus on your light. Focus on that picture, because you've created a symbolic representation of who they were in the physical plane. This is who they were: a body of water, a spiritual flame, and then a picture of them, and an altar designed to hold their presence. Breathe deep, everybody, and close your eyes. Sit back and relax. Stretch your neck. Find a comfort zone. Move. Get comfortable. Knowing that they're present with you, close your eyes. Knowing that they're present with you now in symbolic spiritual representation, physical representation, and they are here. Breathe deep. Now, Close your mind and open your heart. And when you breathe, only see the air or the divine and the coolness of a deep breath. When you breathe in, the air is cool. And when you breathe in, let it go straight to your heart, not to your lungs, but to your heart. Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, and every breath goes straight to your heart. And open your heart. It is not an intellectual process that we're doing. It is a heartfelt connectiveness that we're doing. Always checking to see how relaxed your shoulders are. Now, after you've practiced this 2 or 3 times, you'll want to do it in the dark. I mean, because the candle, I always use birthday candles because they don't burn long. And I don't want to be aggravated with whoever needs to contact me. I don't need to contact anybody. I want them to be happy where they are. And if they need me for something, then I give this system and I sit and do this all the time. Because if I need to be contacted by someone, if it's to help someone or if it's in hospice or if it's someone that I need to know about or there's a message that I need to give that person as they face transition, I use this technique. So I don't have any problems about whether it works. And I know once you get good at it, then it will work for you. Now, the next thing as you're breathing, everybody, is pay attention to why you want to connect. Not what, because the system is in play. Why would I want to connect with that person? And as you're breathing right now and thinking about that, always remember that selfishness doesn't work as well as celebration.
Mm.
To connect with someone, to celebrate that love, to celebrate that joy. Not that you're left alone, not that you've been abandoned, not that you feel betrayed, but it's to celebrate. Check your shoulders. So now what I want you to do in the most relaxed, paying attention to your breath, close your eyes, relax and feel the presence of that person when they were with you. What was it like when you were around them? Think of the moments of when you were around them. What did it feel like? Breathe. What was it like? Now, this next portion will probably take about 5 minutes. So I'll be silent and Scott will be silent. But you want to sit back and relax, closing your eyes, keeping your mind's eye of looking at what, not visibly, but in your mind's eye, looking at the representation of both you and them, which is in your altar. And relax. Now, the first thing you want to do is you want to think of the dumbest thing they ever saw you do. What was the dumbest thing that they ever saw you do? And most of you will start laughing, or some of you will start crying, or some of you will be embarrassed. But nonetheless, that gets their attention. What was the dumbest thing that they ever saw you do? And see how it works, everybody? Feel that presence. Feel it because they can tune in. Remember, And then think of the happiest moment you ever spent with them. That happiest moment. And many of us have many, but you pick out one. What was the dumbest thing they ever saw me do? And yet they still love me. And then what was the happiest moment? So, everybody, I will time this. So please sit, relax, laugh at yourself, and go over all the dumbest things they ever saw. And then all the happiest moments you celebrated with them. And why? It is lighthearted laughter that transcends all levels of consciousness. Guilt, strategy, depression, abandonment, anger, all those things, as it moves outside of your thoughts, just like a radio frequency, it thickens and it never gets there. But laughter, celebration, love, and making fun of yourself crosses every level of consciousness, and wherever they are, it gets their attention. Now relax, everybody. We'll do it in silence. I will time it for you. Celebrate how funny you are. Celebrate being loved with you, with all your little eccentricities. And then think about that moment that you most celebrated that relationship. And we'll take a few minutes to do it. Pay attention to your breathing and the tenseness in your shoulders. Flow. The system of connection has been constructed. The spiritual, emotional, personal relationship has been connected. The sense of oneness with them as they sit in a framework next to you has been connected. And the divine breath of life flows through you both. Now see who comes. Breathe. Trust in your divinity. For those who are laughing, thank you. For those who are tearful, take a moment to think of why you are tearful. Always it's about intention. Because a lot of us miss those celebrations. And as we think we're missing that celebration, you're breaking the connection. Deeper and deeper, closer and closer. And the flame is lit. See who comes. Dwell in the joy, dwell in the happiness, dwell in the celebration that they know you and still love you. And the joy, the times you spent with them that brought you the most happiness And surely it did the same for them. Once again, pay attention to your breathing. A couple of more minutes. Just finding your own rhythm. That place where you have allowed a system, vortex, or portal created by you to give them access back here. Breathe. Pay attention to the stress in your shoulders. Keep them relaxed. Feel the coolness of your breath being breathed directly into your heart, not into your thoughts. Two more minutes. Breathe. Okay, so start back breathing into your lungs. Stay calm. Start back to breathe in your lungs as though you're paying attention to you now. And as you're breathing, breathe all the energy, all the thoughts, all the moments of celebration, and all the moments of someone or a group of someone who know everything about you and who love you still. Start back this way. And when you feel comfortable, open up and look at your altar. Look at your candle first. Look at the keepsake or picture, and then look at the bowl of water, the last thing that's physical. Stay paying attention to the deep depth of your breath and come back. Breathe, everybody. You'll notice how different it is in your physical body and how much calmer you are because of the exercise. And now it begins the art form of recognizing where you just went and what just came to you. And then practicing this technique at a certain time, at a certain place for the right reason. They can't get to you. I'm going to give you a couple of tips. Always, when you get good at it, let the reason be that you can be in service to others. And why? I've had family members of people I only knew for an hour who were my hospice patients that needed to tell them something or needed them to hear something that they needed. And the fact that I got it from this technique and I told it to them, and to watch their face, I have no problem about whether it worked, because what I was told to tell them or what they needed to know meant everything in the world to them. Number two, be of service. How does this serve someone else other than you? It's really for you. But the divine law picks up service. It picks up service. It's systems that says to be of service, because the nature of this reality, everybody, is practicing being a God. The meaning of life is to practice being a God, loving, compassionate, caring, knowing, protective. If you write everything that you hope God is on a piece of paper, and you look at what you hope God is, and you think about how many times per day you get a chance to be everything on that piece of paper, the conclusion you will come to is that the meaning of life is to practice being a God. End of story. Now, the punchline. No one ever leaves heaven. Those people that you're trying to contact are with you now. Different timeline. But to think that you are a physical being and that you're more physical than you are divinely spiritual is an utter mistake. I won't say, oh, wow, look at the experience, love, joy, and laughter. I felt the connection and feeling. That is so great, everybody. Thanks for letting me see this stuff, Scott. I mean, it's nice to realize that I don't ever give out my techniques, everybody. I don't ever give those techniques out because power creates abuse. My systems work by divine law, and I'm well aware of how the divine law operates because I can be trusted, and you cannot buy me, and I don't betray, and I don't lie, and I don't do any of that crap. Why? Because it doesn't benefit me, and it doesn't help me be practicing being a God.
Mm.
Okay? Look at this, feel a joy, peace, because whoever you loved and whoever knew you brings that kind of joy and peace to you today. And the more you practice this technique, everybody, the more closer they can come. I have seen manifestations of people because I only usually do this to help people I just meet in hospice, and they have really complicated lives, Scott, and they're so crazy and they're so full of guilt and shame and betrayal because veterans have a lot of problems. And so when I see that moment, what's the takeaway? The takeaway is this, everybody. All that separation and everything has created for us to think is real is not. It is a lie. The divinity of our divine self is connected to all things. So here's the trap. Take a breath. Here's the trap, everybody. As a divine being, waiting for something to do, you know? Oh, wow. I'm reading this stuff, Scott, and it just makes me feel good because I am in the house and I could feel the presence of my dad.
Mm.
Okay. I can feel the presence of my dad, and it's easy for me to do that because we sat in this room for years and years and years, and I could feel his presence and his contentment. And what I had from him was this: every year on my father's birthday, my when we were little kids, my father used to watch the Friday night cavalcade of sports. It was boxing. And he would get three Pabst Blue Ribbon beers. I would sit on the left arm, my brother would sit on the right arm, and he would drink those three Pabst Blue Ribbons, and we would watch the fights together. That was our time with my father. And so every year no matter where we are. My brother goes and gets 3 beers, and he gets on the phone with me and he drinks. I can't stand Pabst Blue Ribbon, but I drink it. But when I'm not there, he gets on the phone and he drinks 1.5, and he pours 1.5 on the grave down at the church. And we sit and we talk about our dad on the phone. So I was sitting here breathing, and I could see my brother on his birthday, July the 10th, pouring that Pabst Blue and Ribbon, and knowing that my dad celebrates that with us every day. And I wasn't expecting anything to happen, but that's what happened for me.
That's beautiful. I
So, one
this
last thing, and then I'll shut up. Remember this, everybody. Remember this, the truth. To have the courage to come here and to take on 2 things as a base psychology that never happens in the heavens. Very few are brave enough to come here. Very few. So you were chosen and you chose. And the fact that you're here today means you're a great, powerful, and mighty spiritual being with dignity, direction, and purpose. And what you're doing now, the only thing that can ever go wrong is letting something affect your dignity, which skews your direction and your purpose. It's called the pandemic. I wrote about it 25 years ago, and I have lived here and watched this unfold for 45 years. So when you stop to think about it, you have courageous enough to face the fact that there is a system of transition. You trust me to tell you the truth, and that's what I will always do. And you realize that you are not disconnected. So the 2 things that never happens in the divine nature is helplessness and loneliness. In life, you over there, you're never helpless and never lonely. But when you come here, practicing being a God, it's all about developing relationships, friendships, and bonds. So you affect each other, and each other affects you. You're helpless twice and many times throughout your life. But when you come into this world and when you're leaving this world, you are helpless. And in between those 2 patterns comes loneliness and separation. So we've all been through this pandemic business. Helplessness and loneliness are planned actions perpetuated on us, so that leads to despair, which makes you easier to control. So remember, courage and bravery of being helpless, being alone. But today, it doesn't lead to despair. It leads to the divine connection with someone we love and someone who loved us, that reaches across all boundaries and place. That we are loved and we love between here and there, and from there back to here. Thanks, everybody.
Let's all twinkle, Danyan. Lots and lots. And of course, there's a lot of beautiful messages coming through. And I'm going to share a little bit about my experience and give you a chance to read the messages, Danyan. This is the little makeshift altar that I literally put in front of my computer. My computer is a little bit up and to the left. And of course, it's a photo of my wife, Suchi, who passed away almost 10 years ago now. And on the left-hand side, she'd made a little card. I took her 1 year for her birthday to see Le Rêve. She loved Cirque du Soleil. And so she made that card. So I kind of keep that. So, and what's interesting, you'll see my little candle, the little lemon candle. And you know what happened that was interesting, Daniel? Just as you ended, and you asked us, we were breathing back into our lungs. You said, open the eyes, look at your bowl of water. And just as I looked at the bowl of water, the candle was still lit. A little gust of wind came right through. And
Hey, Scott, a little gust of wind. Watch. Was it? I bet you it was a cool little breeze.
Whole little bus came in and just enough to blow out that candle. It was amazing. It was amazing.
That's the beginning, Scott. Those are the beginnings. When people get it down to an art form and it's systematic, the divine law creates quicker and faster access. Repetition in divinity empowers you with skill sets that you already have, but they don't turn on until you refine the frequency and the consistency of the goal. I started doing this because I needed to find a way to get information that helps my people make a safer journey and less frightful journey to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
It's never about me. It wasn't never about me. It was about give me a tool. And I would think these things for years, and I would read books and scrying and psychomantiums. And I would read all this stuff because I know there are techniques that truly exist. And look at the symbology that I created: the bowl of water and the salt, the body, the flame, red, orange, yellow, blue, green, indigo, and violet, the keepsake, and something that represents an altar separate from the world. So you've created a dimensional reality between that world and this world through you about them.
And I'm just
Okay.
as an example, and literally it was on my computer. So the point is, we can create this anywhere, everybody. We can create this everywhere. I did this literally, in 2 minutes in preparation, so we all can do this. And of course, I'm recording this, and I'll put it up on our YouTube channel, and I'll also send it out to everybody, so you can go back and you can listen to Danyan guiding you. I want to share briefly, Danyan, and there's some wonderful messages coming in. Thank you for asking to remember when I made her laugh, when I was silly. Because one of the most amazing things is I used to love to make her laugh, and I would act like a goofball. I would do and the sillier I was, the more she would laugh. And I'll find, I've got a little video. We were on our honeymoon, actually, and we were in this little boutique hotel in Amsterdam, where there's no way to get through the hallway with all of our suitcases and stuff. And I started doing a comedy routine, like a Charlie Chaplin type of thing, where I can't get through the hallway and I'm stuck. And she got out her camera and started to film it, and she started to laugh. And I play that video all the time just to hear her laughing, right? To hear the memory of her laughing. And it was great because as you guided us, I remembered several other instances of silly things I would do to get her to laugh. And
But
you're right.
Scott, that is the art. Watch. This technique works. I have no problems about it. None. I wouldn't be telling it if I didn't test it a million times. I wouldn't, I have like a dozen techniques like this that I developed over the years. I developed over the years as tools. I just have never given them out. I don't, you don't do it. But now, because of what's happening and the pandemic and the kind of loss and the grief, it's necessary. And when you ask me to do this, I could think of no one that I would rather do it with than you, because I have such a close relationship with you. And you've seen techniques that I like, the one you described earlier, the synchronistic breathing technique. You have not even known me from Adam's house cat. You are producing a show. You have watched me do these things over and over again. So what better place to bring it forth than on a Sunday morning, in a lovely, beautiful morning? And I prefer for people, I mean, I like dawn and dusk, because everybody in science wants it to be black and white. Well, if it's all just black and white, why is there dawn and then why is there the dusk?
Mm-hmm.
I like twilight. It's my favorite time of the day, because as the sun sets, I want it to become dark by its natural cycle, so I can use this technique as the night sets in, I can use this technique because of the darkness and it's natural, and I can relax and I can have two or three patients or friends that I'm dealing with on my mind, and I see what comes. Once you become to be a channel, you'll be amazed at who comes through with to help someone that you know is having a problem. It doesn't necessarily have to be your wife or your loved ones, but if someone comes through that you can be of service to, what does that mean? They're going to tell her. They're going to say, well, Scotty's doing a good job, you know? So I celebrate these techniques. And here's the other thing I'd like to say. When people poo poo things or they say, oh, that has no scientific basis, or I don't believe it. Well, here's what I say. What do you want to bet?
Mm.
Because I'll use the technique on them.
By the way, there's some just so beautiful comments coming in. And I don't know if you remember this, Daniel, but talking about being a clear channel for spirit to flow through, you and I were having sushi dinner in Venice, California. It was a long time ago. It was probably 20, 25 years ago. It was shortly after we met, I think. And the waitress, was friendly and we were connecting. And you said, you could tell something was up. You said, you're confused about something right now, aren't you? She said, well, yeah. And you said, can I hold your hand for a moment? And she said, well, okay. You held her hand and you perfectly channeled how she was confused between two different men in her life, the unhealthy guy and the guy that she really should be with. And you got the names. You actually got the names. And this, I'll never forget this waitress, just like, who is this guy? But again, you were being of service. You were a clear channel for spirit to flow through over sushi and I think a little bit of sake.
Well, because she was serving us.
Mm,
Someone who came to serve us. She was a good waitress. She was on time. She was paying attention to everything we needed. You and I were celebrating, having enjoying ourselves. Then my nature is to benefit, to give back. And I will range you if you get within 3 or 4 feet of me, you have an energetic field that I can lock into that energetic field. And then I automatically perceive my techniques and skill sets in divine law automatically detect it. And I wasn't trying to impress anybody. I was being thankful for her paying attention to you and me while you and I were just celebrating being the best of friends, enjoying ourselves, looking at life. Nobody, between you and me, there is no scam or anything. We're just the best of friends. We talk it over. We decide what we're going to do. We make a deal. We get it done. And we were celebrating something. Well, I automatically give back. I have so much gratitude for being alive at this particular time in history that I can hardly stand myself. Okay. So everything to me is gratitude and being thankful because everything that most people are afraid of, I've already been through it, even to being dead.
mm,
you know, okay. Well, what is left? Going to hell? Well, I can't wait to go to hell. I just have never been able to achieve it in the 4 times I've been dead.
mm,
People say, well, Daniel, why do you want to go to hell? Well, watch. If my God has an enemy, so religions say, my God has an enemy. And the last thing I ever want to do or know is know I get my hands around the throat of that enemy. And I do not care whatever happens. Once I know that was the last thing I did in existence, if it was going to be eternal torment, and I got to strangle that sucker. so, so my biggest joy, I'll never be able to accomplish it.
mm. Wow. There was something I wanted to point out earlier in the show today. You were talking about how when, of course, there's the part of us that's always up in heaven, that's always up in the higher realms. And you were talking about how, don't be looking for the way a person was. And uh, I had a girlfriend, actually, after she died, Emily. And
Yeah.
Emily went to a wonderful psychic that I connected her with. And Emily had a grandfather who was a really, really horrible human being. He caused a lot of suffering for his family, ended up committing suicide and blaming it on Emily's mother. Um, and so Emily, up until going to see the psychic, always had this perception of her grandfather as this horrible human being. But what the psychic helped her to connect to is actually that same soul is now Emily's or one of her guardian angels. Because once he came back into the spirit realm in wholeness, like you said, where there is no despair, where there is no loneliness, where he came back into the oneness and saw the tragedy of his human life, he dedicated
Panoramic life review.
himself to being a guide to help all of his ancestors. And I think it's a really important message that, again, no matter what tragedy occurred in our human life, what terrible mistakes we may have made or people around us may have made, back in the astral or in heaven or in the higher realms, and we remember who we truly are, we all have that angelic nature. We all have the ability to be of loving service.
We all have no other choice but to be that. You know, if the purpose of this existence is to be godlike, we're all teachers, learners, and doers. But the panoramic life of you is the true value. You see your whole life pass before you in a 360-degree panorama. You have missed nothing. You know everything. And then you realize that you had limited your scope, range, and skill set to achieve a goal that was divinely placed on you, which allowed you to come here. And on top of that, you took on helplessness and loneliness. So you would be forced to need people and you would be forced to develop relationships because helplessness and loneliness leads to despair. So despair is there is no way a spiritual being, understanding that they're a spiritual being, could have despair. I have moments of depression because of enormous pain, but they last short lives. And then second, you watch yourself from a second person point of view as if you were your own best friend. That's where the technique of what is the dumbest thing they ever saw you do or caught you at. I took that from the panoramic life review because when you have your best friend looking at you, there's no judgment. They're just saying, damn, Dan, what in the world could your foolish self be thinking? My God, that was really cool. Oh man, I wish I could have done that better and that place. And then you literally become every person and you feel the direct results of your interaction between that person. So when you look at the bowl and the altar, I've created it based on events that happened in the near-death experience. And I study them because I've had so many of these experiences. And each of those represents the panoramic life review and the fact that you can create a world using your breath. Your divine connective, what God represents is your breath, air. Okay? Air. And I'll give another point, everybody. The universe does not care about the breath you breathe in. That's your responsibility to be here. Because if you weren't breathing and you weren't breathing deep, you will not be here long. Fear creates shallowness of breath. Guilt, loneliness, despair, all abandonment, all these creates shallow breaths. So they cannot be real to a spiritual being. They can only have value to a human being because a human being has to breathe in order for the body, oxygen makes everything work. The universe cares about the breath that you breathe out. And they care about what your intention is as you breathe that breath out. I know all this stuff because I have been where you don't breathe. So going there, I would know, and you know how anal retentive, obsessive, compulsive I am, Scott. I'll read 1,000 books on it. I don't care. You know, if you could see this room, there's probably maybe 600 books in just this one room.
Wow. Wow.
Oh, it's probably 5,000 books in this house. I mean, I've been in this house for probably 30 years. But I have something else. Give me 1 second. I have something
Sure.
I want to. I mean, here, I got something. Hold on.
Yep, yep, yep. And again, thank you, everybody. I see that we still have about 70 people with us, and really appreciate
Okay.
all of your comments. Um, yes, Janet, service to humanity, service to self for people, absolutely very important to be of service. Um, and Matilda asks, I wonder, what if you cannot pinpoint what is the dumbest thing your loved one saw you doing, but just think that he certainly saw you doing many dumb things? I think,
Absolutely. You
yeah,
can bet on it. And most of those dumb things is what he loved about you. Think about this, everybody. What makes you love someone? Okay. The beauty of them. I mean, this is what makes people, it isn't the perfections, it's the imperfections and the quaintness of the personality. That
yeah,
when you die with people, when you spend so much time at the bedside, I learned these things, Scott, because I have tens of thousands of hours studying it. So I I want to read to everybody the laws of the universe. Is that okay?
absolutely. I'm going to put the full spotlight on you, partner.
These are the absolute laws of the universe that I live by. What is the law of the universe? As we give, so shall we receive. What is the law of the universe? As we know, so shall we be known. What is the law of the universe? As we care for, so shall we be cared for. What is the law of the universe? As we own, so shall we be owned. What is the law of the universe? As we give life, which is a value, so shall we be given life. Remember, it's a value of life. What is the law of the universe? As we give life, so shall we be given life. What is the law of the universe? As we give knowledge, so shall we be given knowledge. Because today, using this technique, I got to spend a few moments with my father, and I thank each and every one of you for that. And I didn't have to drink a Pabst Blue Ribbon with my brother. What is the law of the universe? As we are with the divine, so shall the divine be with you. And we did that today also. What is the law of the universe? It is the divine's law, and none but the divine can transition or transcend this law. That's the technique you're using. What is the secret of the new beginning? Knowledge of the laws of the universe is the secret of the new beginning. What is the gift of the new beginning? Union and unity, which is what we experience together today. And what is the secret of union and unity? Love is the secret of union and unity. And what is the way and the process? You are the way and the process. Thus are the laws of the universe, everybody.
Beautiful.
Now,
Oh,
where do you think that came from?
I was just going to ask who's the author of that. I'm guessing it's Daniel Brinkley.
Yep,
When did you write that, Daniel?
probably 1978.
Wow. Wow.
I had a lot of time in those days since I couldn't walk. I mean, I was just getting up. I mean, it took 2 years to learn to walk and feed myself. I was just getting up, and I had a lot of pain and I would pass out. And I was living in Southern America in fundamentalism.
Hmm.
And I was so far from the Daniel that I was before. But I knew that this was the most real experience that had ever happened to me. And I had to adjust to it. And then after having to learn how to walk and feed myself, studying my body because it wouldn't move and they sent me home to die. And I had to learn to make it work again. And I had time to really be philosophical. What are these laws? What are these things I'm seeing? Because, Scott, when I could finally crawl out of the bed and get up in my rocking chair, and I'm like a notorious rocker, then I would start rocking and I would move through levels of consciousness. I would go through these dimensions, and it wasn't anything like I'd gone to in the death experience, but there are dimensionals. That's how I understand densities. These densities that you take on are worlds. I call them coats. These densities that you take on are like cloaks, but they are worlds. Inhabited are timelines, but they are inhabited by other beings who put their blessing on you or puts their viewpoint on you as you're coming to practice and being a god. Okay, now this is the final point I want to make. And it's so important, everybody. And I want to read it to you out of Saved by the Light. Hold on.
Also known as the Gospel according to Daniel.
Exactly.
One of my favorite Gospels, I might add. Well, I trust the Gospel according to Daniel more than I trust the other Gospels that have been rewritten and retranslated too many times.
No, this is just me. At the end of the vision, I had an amazing realization why these beings were so desperately trying to help us. Not because we are such good, great guys, but without us advancing spiritually here on earth, they could not become successful in their worlds. That's the 7 chakras. Each of those is a dimension of reality that they gifted us with so that they could feel what we were going through. You humans are truly the heroes of being communicated. Those who go to earth as heroes and heroines, because you're doing something that very few or no other spiritual being has the courage to do. You have come to the earth to co-create as gods.
Wow. And it's true.
Exactly what you're doing here, everybody. And if you buy into the Danyan viewpoint, you'll be amazed at who you become in the dawn and the dusk. 2 times that you can measure who you are. I live in both of them because I only sleep 4 hours. So, I mean, I never sleep. Maybe once a month I sleep more than 4 hours.
Wow.
I just can't, And so I catch the dawn and I catch the dusk literally every day.
Well,
It's the time I measure who I am, Scott. It's the time I take stock. Now look at my life. Like now I see the world shifting very fast. And I always come home to face me. You can never be a messiah in your own hometown. But if you come look at all the crap that you've accumulated over your life, which is what this house is, that's how you measure yourself.
Yeah.
That's how you don't fool yourself. And so I always come here to do this.
Yeah, it's sunset is, they call it the magic hour. And it is, it's like that in between worlds, the day is ending, the night is beginning. And it is a magic time. It's a wonderful time to really.
So is dawn.
Yeah, and so is dawn.
Like the sun is rising and the sun's setting. When everybody says it's black and white, but then why is there the dawn and the dusk?
Yeah.
There is a gray period, a combination of the light entering the darkness, and then there's a combination of the light leading to the darkness. And always remember, there's many people at night praying or believing that the sun will never come up, and they're frightened all night. But I got news for them. The sun will come. So when you see darkness in your life, remember that light will come, or you bust out your altar.
Mhm. I am just came back to one of the people. There's a lot of really wonderful comments, by the way, Daniel, and I'll send you the chat from today because it was really, really beautiful. So many comments. A lot of people enjoying the gospel according to Daniel. And in conclusion, let's just send Daniel our love. Um, uh, just sending him, let's take a few breaths. He's taught us how to breathe beyond the lungs, breathing into the heart. We take that inhale, and like he said, the inhale is for us, then the exhale is our gift back to the world. And in this moment, we exhale back our blessings and our appreciations to beloved brother Daniel Brinkley, who has been a beautiful guide, mentor, and brother to so many of us for so long. Love you so much, Daniel.
Thank you, Scott. And thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Hey, you know, I do want to invite everybody. Next weekend is going to be a really important weekend. I'm calling it the Weekend of Wellness, and we're going to be doing 2 hours of straight talk, 4 hours on Saturday Night Live, and 2 hours on this show, Sacred Sunday, dealing with all the issues around depression, suicidal fantasies, alcoholism, addiction, domestic violence, all the really big challenges that we face in life. Reverend Michael Beckwith spent an hour with me, and we did a beautiful video. I'm going to be pulling excerpts from that. And as I said, all of us know people that are dealing with alcoholism and addiction and those issues. And some of us ourselves are dealing with those issues. And so whether it's you or a friend or a family member, we, like Daniel said today, you know, we go beyond the judgment and we go, wow, how can we support each other? How can we connect? So next weekend is going to be a really powerful weekend of dealing with a lot of tools. And boy, a lot of the tools that Daniel gave us today is going to be really useful and valuable. So please do join us for Straight Talk on Friday night, 7:30 Pacific time. Of course, Saturday Night Live at 6 o'clock Pacific time, 5:30 for the early Zoom room show. And then this show, Secret Sunday, Sunday at 10 a.m. That's all Pacific time. I'll go back and thank you so much for all these beautiful comments. Mark, I want to learn more about your Jerry Goldsmith piano. I'm a huge fan of Jerry Goldsmith. That's very cool. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Joni. Thank you, Judy and Jennifer, all of you who wrote to us today. Isn't it wonderful? Fanny Starchild, wonderful friend and musician. I see a lot of beautiful friends who are in the Zoom room with us today. So thank you. And remember, we can make any day, any moment sacred just by choosing to see the divinity in ourselves, the divinity in nature, the divinity in some of the human beings that irritate us. Remember, it's their behavior or their choices that irritate us. Who they are, deep down, is always divine. So let's remember that. Oh my gosh, all these wonderful messages that just came in. Yes, there will be a replay. What I do is I will right away post this on our YouTube channel. That's the Saturday Night Live for the Global Peace Tribe YouTube channel. And I'll post that link up on my Facebook page. And I'll also email it out to everybody. So thank you for joining us. Make sure that I've got your email address by registering. Go to globalpeacetribe.com. If you haven't already registered, globalpeacetribe.com. Register so we have your email. And we'll be sending out the replay of this as well as last night's Saturday Night Live, which was an amazing show. It's one of the best ones we've ever had. It was really powerful. So I love each and every one of you. And last thing, retreats. We are going to be having retreats. Imagine coming and being able to hug me or Danyan or Deborah, or some of the amazing people can have. So mid-July, we're going to have our first retreat. It'll be in Northern California in Woodside. Woodside is my friend's got a beautiful estate right about halfway between San Jose and San Francisco airports. So you can fly into San Jose, San Francisco, or Oakland, and come join us mid-July. Then in September 14 to 21, we're going to have a retreat in Maui. And then the second weekend of October, we're going to have a retreat in Asheville, North Carolina. I got to mention that to Daniel, so that Daniel, because he's in the Carolinas, can be there. We got to have Daniel in that one, don't you think? Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that chat. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, everybody. So I'll be putting out the information about our retreat soon. Each one's going to be limited to about 35 people. So definitely register soon and get your, we'll get all the details out there. We'll make a website about it. So much love. Have a beautiful Sacred Sunday. Thanks for being with us today. I am saving the chat.